Snaking its way through the countryside of southern Virginia, this beautiful 3.2-mile strip of asphalt has been around since 1957. But now, for the second time in 3 years, the Virginia International Raceway is home to the SCCA National Championship Runoffs.
Hi everybody, and welcome to a very damp and rainy and soon to be windy Virginia International Raceway for this 59th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. And we are so excited because one of my absolute favorite classes is about to take to the track. That is Formula F. I've loved it as long as I've been following SCCA racing. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Larry McLeod. Lefty, great to have you with us. And of course, down in the pits will be Hayward Wagner. And you know, Larry, this track, I've said many times, it's like a beautiful road course. You have to drive with street course precision because there's no gravel, there's no paved runoff, and you go off the track, it's grass, and it all slopes downward, so you go for these long rides. Now imagine exaggerating that tenfold in the wet.
And that rain that runs off the outside of the track wants to drag you there the entire way around this place. It is treacherous, it's undulating, sometimes even on TV it looks flat. This place is not flat pretty much anywhere. And but that also means the water gets to move around, it pools up at different spots, which means you have to learn how to read a track very quickly because we had a very dry week. And for these drivers, haven't seen this place in the wet, unless they were here in 2019. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this track, as you mentioned, it's got undulation like we see here in the front straight, but it also has huge elevation change and big drop when you dip into that roller coaster. It's got iconic parts of this track. Everything about it is spectacular. The big story, of course, though, is the weather, and it is just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse as the remnants of Hurricane Ian, now still very tropical storm force with a lot of rain and a fair amount of wind, are going to be moving through here. So that's going to be part and parcel of it. And the guy who drew the short straw in terms of where to be working for the weekend, down in the weather, we couldn't ask for a better one to be doing it, though, is Hayward Wagner. Hayward, hi.
Nothing I enjoy more than a throw down to the grid with news that the weather's just going to get worse and worse, and we are absolutely in it. About a dozen cars here in Formula F, some youngsters, some karters. You've got some veterans in this class, a really great mix of cars and talent. A couple of things to keep an eye on. Number one, because of the way the wet has set in, we are no longer in a tire management situation. This is full wet. This is going to be a full-pace race. These guys aren't managing the tires. They're just running them as hard as they can. Also, you have several drivers in this class that have never run in the wet before in a full-bodied car, a full-size car, but have massive amounts of experience in karting. One of them is Cameron Reed, who's starting at the back of the pack, literally has nowhere to go but up. So keep an eye on these youngsters as they learn how to drive these cars in these conditions. Sometimes not knowing what you can get away with can be an advantage.
That's true. That's absolutely true, Hayward. Not knowing any better,
Yeah.
you know, complete ignorance sometimes is bliss, literally, in these conditions, because you have to go over. But we were talking before we even got on the air about in the wet. This is like a brand new track.
It definitely is. You see this place in the dry, it's difficult to find the marks and be precise. Suddenly in the wet, all the lines have changed. You know, talking to some drivers with some pretty good experience in the wet around here, and they'll tell you that there are some places you got to go the traditional wide line, you got to go find it. Other places, you just have to go driving and bounding across those curbs and hope for the best. But it's a rare opportunity to get it, but for FF, it's not that rare. And now 3 years later, after their wet runoffs in 19,
Yep.
We're back to rain.
Yeah, so those who ran in 19 here have that little bit of track knowledge that they can lean on pretty heavily. And you're right, you know, when you're driving the rain line and you have to drive that wide outside line sometimes, that in and of itself takes a fair bit of commitment because instead of having the rest of that track width from the apex to run wide, now you got maybe a foot or two, and if you go off, we've already talked about what can happen.
It cuts those margins down to very thin places. We've already seen this weekend one formula race, the F5 race, where lots of drivers were finding themselves in the grass. You know, it's a matter of just hunting for the grip. If you can find the outside line, you can see a dull, non-reflective piece of pavement. You want to drive towards it, but make sure that you stay off of that green stuff because it is not at all grippy.
Well, and here you can see what we're dealing with. There's that little bit of standing water where, you know, the puddling is, and you need to avoid that because even with the rain tires, it's easy to get up on top and hydroplane. The other part of it is it's cold right now. It's 54 degrees out there.
Yeah.
And even though a rain tire has all the channeling to help get the water out, it still needs heat. They're super soft compounds because you still need to get heat. it's going to take a lot longer for these cars to be able to get any temp into those tires.
They'll be working them hard here on the out lap. They'll be hunting for those water standing spots to make sure they avoid them when they go out. So this is very much a sighting and warm-up lap. You can see a lot of drivers moving all over the place to warm and to be looking.
And I haven't been able to be up here for the entire week prior like I normally do, but I didn't see any kind of weather up here. So this is the first time they're out in the wet. So this sighting lap is massive.
It literally rained probably even after everyone left their hotel this morning. I left mine. I was walked out of the lodge at about 7:15 this morning, and there was still some dry pavement. It had just started to come down. So right on time. Let's throw in the wild card, a little bit of rain, and let's have a good time. But at least it's consistent. The FF race a couple years ago almost thought it was going to get into the dry. It turned wet. It was a bit of a crazy thing going on today. Everyone knew, as Hayward says, they're all here on the reins, no doubts.
And of course, this class, first time it made its appearance, 1969. A guy by the name of Skip Barber won that first race, and it's been a huge training ground for people moving up through the ranks for many, many years. Sports Car Racing magazine says your pole sitter, Jonathan Kotyk, is going to win his fourth. I think Tim Kautz was picked for second, and Nolan Allaer, which is really a cool story, is the guy picked for third, as they are out now on their pace lap, getting ready to go. Again, 15 laps is the lap distance. If there are incidents or it just starts to run long, I believe it's a 40-minute time duration that it would revert to. There is a look at the 09 at the back of the field of Cameron Reed that Haywood was talking about. It's going to be interesting to see, what some of these guys can do. The spray in any kind of an open wheel car is blinding.
Well, he talked about Cameron, and she comes in. She's very young, I think just 15 years old, but a lot of karting experience. Just picked up this car this year. Great story there. She's coming along very quickly. Might be the first time they put reins on the car. She was actually, Bob Perona was helping set up the car, getting the ride height back to adjustment. Because one thing about these cars is the rain tire diameter is different than the dry tire, which means the ride height changes. If you want to get that back, suddenly you're readjusting there either last night or first thing this morning. And Cameron was able to get that done with her father and crew chief there last night, and we'll see if she can work her way through the field this morning.
And the other part of it, in the wet, you would soften the car up quite a bit to try and get that weight to transfer and plant. But even in the wet, like through these climbing S's, you still need a stiff enough platform to be able to change direction quickly. And so it's a little bit of a trick, this place is, and it really presents, Larry, as almost 3 different tracks. Let's take a look at it, because the different sections of the track, there you see from the start line over to the exit of the Snake, very busy, very technical. Then you see that stretch up through the climbing S's and to the exit of Oak Tree, your flowing speed through there, right? And then you got that long run down the back straight, but then right before the finish line, it plummets downhill. Really technical. All
downhill, especially down that roller coaster into Hog Pen. Hog Pen is treacherous in the dry. We already saw this morning that curbing at the apex is enticing you in to try and cut it hard so that you can make that exit. The problem is that's not the fast way around. And little formula cars, if they're not super soft like these, they do not like curbs, especially in these conditions. So let's see who can be precise.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's the one thing that is always worth noting here is, those curbs have paint on them. And, yeah, they try and get an aggregate, a rough paint, but still it can be a little bit slippery. Here's the exit of Oak Tree, and that is that long run down what they call Madison Avenue here. And you dip, you climb, you dip, and then you just drop off the face of the earth into the roller coaster.
And if we were in a dry race, it's saying that draft would mean everything down this straightaway. And the only thing it's going to do today, yes, it might give you a top speed, but it's going to just fill your face with spray off the mist coming off the back of the car in front of you. So you might see a little bit more of somebody trailing, popping out a little earlier to try and find their braking zone as they come to the end of Madison Avenue.
Clear up a little bit of visibility. And I know that these drivers, when you're up front and you see a seam in the track that's got a little extra water in it and you don't think it's going to upset you, you will put tires right on top of that to throw all that back at your competitor. This is national championship time.
I may have heard a driver or two mention that earlier this week, that can be a strategy.
So you use every tool in the toolbox, no question about it. And the field starting to pack up. Now you saw the starting lineup scrolling across the bottom of the screen, though. Front row, boy, loaded with champions. 6 gold medals on that front row alone. And then all of the guys that are wanting to come after it, a couple other gold medal winners from previous years in different categories there as well. But here we go, down through that final turn, Hog Pen, and onto the start-finish straight as we are getting ready to go for the gold in Formula F. Boy, what a sight that is. See the spray coming up. They're not even at speed yet, Larry.
Yeah, That's going to about triple in height here when they go green.
We'll know it. There's a prescribed start zone. And there we go, and we're green. Jonathan Kotyk giving it the welly, and that yellow, that's the Megale has moved up. He looks like he's got the position. Kautz wanted to think about going around the outside. Look at Theodore Burns. He's just going to go straight to the apex, down underneath. Does he make that work? 3 wide into turn 1.
That inside's where the grip is down there. The outside's typically pretty slippery, so that may have worked for Burns, but that looks like spinning in the back. That's Kautz.
That's Kautz going around. He went for that wide line, and it just stepped out. And I'll tell you what, Theodore Burns made that inside move work. Now, look at him trying to defend, knowing that Koityk's going to try and counterpunch immediately. This is up into that very busy section. 3, 4, side by side through 4 and 4A. You don't see that often.
Kotyk thinking he is going to be faster through there. Burns made a great job down into 1 to make the pass, but I'm not sure he's going to have the pace through here that Kotyk's got. One of the most experienced drivers in Formula F's in the entire field is Jonathan Kotyk.
Yeah, no question about it. 3 golds in the last 4 years. That tells you the level of dominance he's put up here. Battling continuing behind that lead duo right there. 3rd and 4th having a nice scrap. This is up through those climbing S's, and look at the visibility. You can see it in the air already. That's Nolan Allaer and that black number 11. I think that is right behind him, Puerto Rican, a
Trevor
rookie
Russell.
here. Oh, that Trevor?
Just Trevor, yeah, in the Rice prepped Formula F there in the number 32.
Yeah, he was 2nd at Indy last year in the FX, and look at this, side by side, Nolan protecting to the inside, and Trevor willing to float it around the outside if he can make it work. Here's what's known, big drifts through the exit of what they call Oak Tree Turn. Used to be a beautiful oak tree there that came down in a storm years ago. Now the run down Madison Avenue.
So Nolan, a 2nd-gen driver. Rob Allaer, his father, runs an FC. You'll see him at a different race this year. Nolan also going to be running in that one. But Nolan been running a lot of various races in both those classes this year, running in the FRP, FF 1600, as a lot of these drivers do. So he's gotten a lot of seat time learning the racecraft of Formula F.
Well, and that's going to be a big benefit for him. I mean, having run this race before he gets into Formula Continental, when we know it's going to be wet. He's and there's no substitute for seat time, and that's really paying off for him. And I think we're seeing what you were talking about. Kotyk now is starting to open up a little bit of a margin, and as a matter of fact, Nolan and Trevor coming
Nolan's
after.
off.
Oh, he's off, running wide.
That's that hog pen. That's how treacherous it is. That pavement just drops off. You think you get comfortable trying to carry some speed. That pavement says otherwise.
That was a brilliant job of saving it. Never made any massive corrections and just used little bits, but he's lost immense amount of track time now. And see, we can watch what happens here.
Just touches a little bit of that curve,
Yep.
catches that groove that's on the right side between the concrete curbing and the asphalt pavement. May have just kind of stuck the tire in there and hooked it a little bit, just sent him straight out. But what a great job recovering.
Yeah, just phenomenal. Just those little bits of correction. He's back on, but obviously he's dropped well down the order, shown in 8th when he came across the start-finish line. And as you said up front, Jonathan Kotyk, as Burns attacked him in that first section of the track, but once they got into the climbing S's and beyond that, Burns has dropped off just a little bit, and Kotyk right now is all alone, as you can see, working through the snake.
Yeah, showing that the veteran skills there, knowing exactly what that car can do. I honestly was surprised that he made the counter move on Burns as quickly as he did, knowing his pace was probably going to be pretty quick, but at this point he's showing it was 4 seconds already ahead when they came across stripe. At this point, coming up the climbing S's, all you can do is just try and straight line as much of it, but you look at him go around South Bend here and just carrying speed even in the wet.
Yeah, he just really has the ability, wet or dry, to just be able to flow speed. And one of the things that, a wet track like this will really, they call it the great equalizer. If you're running a car that's maybe not as dialed in and set up, you can hustle it in the rain, you can make it work if you're a great driver. But the other side of the coin is a driver that really has that gift of feel can really let it show. And that's what he's doing here. And he hails out of Atlantic Beach, Florida. And let's go back and take a look at the start. The interesting thing to me was that the silver car in the back, watch that, Burns in the black car down to the inside line.
Yeah, Burns takes that inside line, but you're watching the car in the middle of there, which should have been Tim Kautz, take that spin as he gets a little bit of that, probably found a puddle there in the middle of the track. Unbelievable that everybody's able to work their way around him. And of course, in the back of the pack, another spin. That's the 77 of Jay Messenger, one of the more veterans in this field. Able to get going again, but not before Cameron Reed had to make her way around him.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Nobody got it. And yeah, I think he absolutely did catch a little bit of a puddle because the car just snapped really suddenly. Watching here, Trevor Russell. And he has closed up right onto the back of Burns, and obviously after Nolan dropped off a little bit, now Russell in that blue number 32 can just sort of put his head down in the Magali and go after him.
And I've talked to him this week. He's running a couple of classes, going to run FC, he's going to FX in his FC car. This young man, he works on his own cars. He does all of his own tuning, all his own repairs. He was doing a little bit of nose cone body repair on his FC car. So this kid is not just one of these kids that just goes out and grabs his helmet. Somebody says, there's the car. He preps the car, builds the car, and races it. He's a fantastic young man. You can see right now, he's very comfortable in these conditions. Doesn't seem to have any issues. And he's looking to pounce on Mr. Burns.
Yeah, he was just looking to take a look into turn 4. And you can make a pass there, but you've got to be up inside really aggressively and early, and decides to wait just a little bit. He was second at Indy in that FX category last year, so he definitely knows about running at the front clearly. And what a battle!
And last year he was in a battle just like this in that FX race. Came up just a little bit short, and I'm sure he wants to come up on the other side of these battles this year. Coming out here running a couple of different cars. Look at the patience though the young man is showing there behind Burns. He's not popping out. He's not sending it in any kind of a bad spot. He knows maybe that there's some pace he has it as an advantage. He's going to wait and be able to use it at the right time as we flash back to Kautz there, who had that early spin.
And just looking at lap times right now, Jonathan Kotyk up front has, his last lap was a 2:20.7. Next up was a 2:25. Right now, Kotyk is just in a completely different zone right now as he's working his way around. Looking at the times for Kautz, he's running a bit quicker than some of the guys in front of him, but as we all know, catching them and passing them can often be two different things. But I would think right now, Trevor Russell, he's going, there's no chance we're going to catch Kotyk at this point. This battle is for the silver, and that's the one he's going to focus on, because Jonathan right here in this beautiful bright yellow machine, as I said, out of Atlantic Beach, Florida, and we want to just let everybody know, huge concerns for everybody down in Florida. I live in the Sarasota, Bradenton area, and it came through us, but we got away with it fairly lucky. But those down in the Fort Myers Beach area, we're thinking about you.
That's Trevor Russell now, just finishing that pass now as he comes out of Hog Pen ahead of Theodore Burns. Russell is still probably the second quickest car on the track. Porter Aiken, who's currently in fourth, is probably the next quickest out there. But Trevor showing that he's got the pace, able to make the move. Who knows? Let's see what kind of pace he can put down here. Maybe at some point be able to keep his eyes up there for Jonathan.
That's a really good point. Take a look at the move here. Got the nose inside, Larry.
Oh, that's a tough place to make the pass. If he's coming down, you can see him right down the roller coaster. Sees a little bit of a slip for Burns going to the right, and Trevor able to tuck inside as they came up to Hog Pen. So great move, seeing an opportunity.
Well, you talked about it. He showed great patience, didn't risk too much, waited for the right moment, and the minute he saw that little wiggle from Burns, said, this is it. Through he went, and not too far behind Burns now is the rookie Porter Aiken. First time here at the Runoffs.
Yeah, Porter Aiken just put in his quickest lap of the race. Actually, he now has the quickest third sector, which is essentially from the South Tower all the way down to start-finish. So he's quickest there. Sounds like he may be quick in a straight line, but he's right in this battle now with Burns and Russell.
Yeah, Porter didn't do much in terms of racing in the Hoosier Super Tour, but he had 2 wins in the majors program side of things, so he's used to competing at the front as well. So now Porter has his eyes on, as a rookie at the Runoffs, maybe being able to get up onto the podium and earn a medal. That says a lot. And look at the experience of Joe Colasacco, who's been around a long time, really puts it together. His last gold medal was in 2005 in Mid-Ohio in Spec Racer Ford, but he is a busy driver, second in the Hoosier Super Tour in this class right now. Just loads of experience, and he's just kept it on track. Now he's fourth.
Yeah, he's still running in that Spec Fords, but also running here in the Formula F. Maybe he'll use some of this knowledge later today when he gets back into the Spec Ford there. But some of the veteran knowledge really helps, just a couple seconds behind these kids like Porter Aiken and Trevor Russell just up in front of him. So we'll see if he can make a move on them, as it looks like Burns wants that spot back.
Yeah, he does. Diving down into that inside, locks that right front. Got off the brake just in time, Larry.
Big lockup. I'm sure Aiken was trying to stay out there, say, don't come over here.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's part of it. It's so easy, obviously, in these very wet conditions to lock that tire. And what you have to do is exactly what Theodore did is have the presence of mind to immediately come off that brake just a little bit, get that rotating so you can use it to steer again, then gently get back on the brake. Well done.
It's a great thing about these cars. This racing here, Formula F, so pure. There's no anti-lock. There's no traction control. This is as pure driving as it gets.
Absolutely. I mean, under-tired, even for the power. Massive, this class is all about momentum, which is the most valuable tool anyone can learn in racing. Because no matter where you end up, you could be in 1,000 horsepower cars, but if everybody around you has a 1,000 horsepower car, if you have more momentum exiting the turn, you get to terminal velocity sooner. And that's what makes this so fun. But these cars very, as we said, low grip by design. That's the whole idea. And the whole idea of this class, Larry, there's no wings, there's no artificial grip, it's all mechanical, and that teaches you car control.
It does, and you can see in these conditions how that car control skill just floats to the top with the real talent there with Kotyk right now, 14 seconds up. And then these young drivers like Russell and Aiken. But even then the veterans like Kotyk showing that, hey, they still have that. Maybe in the dry conditions, maybe he doesn't think he's got the pace, but here in the wet, showing that car control is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, taking a look at it, Kotyk was running a last lap almost 2 seconds quicker than Burns. Once Aiken got clear, Aiken has opened that up just a little bit, just had a really quick lap at this stage. But Jonathan Kotyk is now into the 2-minute 19.6 range on his last lap, which is the fastest lap. And that's interesting because obviously you're learning as you go here, going, all right, this line has some pretty decent grip. So each lap, it isn't a surprise to see times dropping a little bit, even if it's getting a little wetter, for the simple reason that you're finding that little bit of grip.
Well, that'll be interesting because we started out this morning, the first race or two, where it was kind of a steady drizzle. During the end of the second race, just before this one, it stopped raining for a little bit, so you had this sort of bit of drying-ish. As the rain comes back down, suddenly these puddles start pulling up again, and now you got to go hunt possibly for a different line as Trevor's coming down the roller coaster and making it look like some good times.
Yeah, he is hustling that machine right now. That is another of the Megales. Really, a nice mix of cars here. And I love the fact that Steve Grafton, running 9th right now, the number 99, is still running one of the original Swift DB1s.
With a Ford even. He's still got the Kent Motor Ford in the back of the talking this morning. He was putting on the full-on rain suit, the big giant plastic bag shaped like legs and arms to try and stay dry out there. But yeah, it was great to see the DB1 Ford-powered car still in the field and doing quite well.
That's the one that created the Aero era of Formula Ford with inboard everything. And it was untouchable for so many years. And that engine is not necessarily quite as torquey and drivable as the fit engine, but in these wet conditions, sometimes not having as much power is not a bad thing.
Yeah, as long as you can tune the carbs to get the right amount of power application in that thing, you can do quite well in a Kent Motor Ford. He's right now down in 9th, but running some decent lap times. But I tell you, the chassis have evolved. The Mygales here of Kotyk and Russell, the Pipers, the modern Pipers, and even the newer Van Diemens, these things are just so slick and sleek through the air. They're quite slippery, and it's just fun to watch them try to fight for every ounce of speed. And as you said, they're kind of an underpowered type car, meant to be momentum, meant to be more for handling and driver skill, but they've tried to just squeak out every half a mile an hour out of them in a straight line, and new chassis aren't so bad.
No, not at all. And, that is the one unfortunate thing, certainly. Well, there's a few, I guess, about having this kind of weather and this rain. Is in the dry when these things run in packs with the drafting, all the way down Madison Avenue here, and then seeing them pop out heading into that treacherous downhill roller coaster. I mean, they are spectacular in the dry, and through the long, fast corners, like up through the climbing S's, and through South Bend, just the drifts that they'll carry through there in the dry is spectacular. So we're missing that, but we're seeing some superb driving skill on display here, particularly from that guy up front in that 08.
Yeah, and you may be watching this and thinking, boy, this race is kind of boring. He's just out there by himself. But I'm really an appreciation of his driver control skills and just watching how the car isn't taking little twitches. Sometimes a driver will come down a thing like the roller coaster, and you'll watch their hands will move, and the car will take little tiny twitches. And all that does is upset the car, changes the weight balance just a little bit, throws the weight around. You watch a driver like Kotyk right now, where he just sort of glides in very smooth. Look at him right down the middle of the track where there's some grip. Ends up over track left, but trying to try and find some grip out there. But look at that car, just super smooth, not a twitch happening, and putting down fast sectors one after another.
Yeah, and I mean that is the memo for the rain, is smooth. All your inputs need to be just absolutely gentle, precise, and gentle acceleration out. And, you know, on the exited turns, he's not even having any kind of over, power oversteer, nothing.
A little right there.
Little slide there.
But that's turn forward. I've heard that that's
Right.
probably the most treacherous out there on this track. But having that throttle control and that ability to just barely hold on to it and not be so digital, and that's a skill that really the near pros, guys like Kotyk, have that skill to be able to be just so linear and so elastic with that throttle that it can be just sort of in one with their groove. As there's, unfortunately, that's Tim Kautz not having the day he wanted. Is that coming down roller coaster?
Looks like it could be, and that right rear, yeah, that's the smart thing is get it a little bit on a more side angle, and then you can probably make the drive here back on track. But I'll tell you what, for a three-time champion, at spin early, this has been not his best race, but you know, geez, these conditions are just diabolical to start with. And he's out there giving it a go.
And you don't know what setup he went with.
Exactly.
You know, some of these guys don't know the right setup for the wet. Maybe he decided to take a bit of a gamble, thinking it wouldn't be as wet, could have left things a little bit stiffer for him, and that might be part of the issue there, because the setup definitely matters in these conditions.
See if we can catch what happened to our three-time gold medalist Tim Kautz in the Piper right here.
That's Nolan Allaer making the pass there, just going into the top of the roller coaster.
Let's see where if Kautz appears here.
That was just
a nice pass.
Joe Kalasako. Allaer right now is the second quickest car on the track, just turned to 220.0. No one else in the field has done a 220 with the exception of Jonathan Kotyk. So Allaer now about 3 seconds behind Theodore Burns for fourth, and he's got himself about 6-7 seconds there off of a podium spot. So keep your eye on that number 11 Allaer. There he is, closing quickly on Theodore Burns.
Yeah, he is coming up in a big hurry here. He's going to look to the inside. Can't do it there. That would put him on the outside. But look at that big wiggle right there, squared up underneath. And is he going to make that pass stick? Well, I'll tell you what, he does. And comes through and makes the pass that moves Nolan Allaer up into fourth in an absolutely beautiful move. And you know what? That was a carbon copy of what Trevor Russell did.
I was just thinking the same exact thing. Is Theodore Burns comes through there and gets that same little twitch going down the roller coaster, and just like Russell, Nolan Allaer just sort of dives to the inside, and now he's trying to defend to the inside, which in my opinion is probably the right place to break, going down into this treacherous downhill braking in one.
Now this is going to be interesting, and look at that. You can see the number 81 of Burns trying to intimidate a little bit, and with every right to do that, not giving Nolan a lot of room. And Nolan just stayed put, and that actually ended up getting Theodore Burns off into the puddles a little bit. And now Nolan looks like he has locked it in. So with that, as we are working lap number 8 of 15 here at the Runoffs, we'll be right back.
Focus, guys. We're in a race to the finish, okay?
Here's where the rubber meets the road.
These initiatives move the needle, like, at all?
Well, let's shift gears a minute.
We're really kind of at the apex here.
We need to put the pedal to the metal. We need to nail those hairpin turns, cross that finish line, and take that checkered flag. Woo!
Hit the track with the world's largest motorsports calendar, track day insurance, and more. Haggerty. Let's drive together.
Introducing the first ever Mazda CX-50.
A good look there as we come back. Jonathan Kotyk, who is continuing to put on an absolute wet weather clinic here, as he has now ballooned his lead up over Trevor Russell to about 18 seconds. That was last time by, and he's been running laps consistently a second or two quicker than anybody else. So when Trevor Russell comes through in second spot and crosses the line, Kotyk might have himself a 20-second lead here. That is just a remarkable display. Let's see, not quite, 19.1, but still, he is flying.
He is, and Trevor Russell isn't exactly slow right now, and Puerto Rican is doing the same thing. Nolan Allaer, this 2-3-4 bunch is starting to tighten up a little bit, as Nolan now just about 2 seconds behind Porter. So we might see a push for third place here. And there he is. Look at that black car of Nolan Allaer just behind that double blue of Puerto Rican. This is going to be a good little battle between these two here for a bit.
Yeah, it's true. Nolan is he's the closest one to Jonathan's times, getting within a half second a couple of times and significantly quicker than the guys in front.
And I wonder if Nolan, if he hadn't had that off at hog pen earlier, where he would be sitting right now. But right now, he's just all he can think about is Puerto Rican right in front of him.
And another guy who's turning some awfully good laps is Robert Perona back in the 7th spot, the number 73 Piper. He just turned a lap at a 2:20.7, and Joe Colasacco and Theodore Burns in front of him are running 2:24s. So that's going to be somebody to keep an eye on here. The number 73 coming up through the pack in just a little bit. There's Russell. Here comes Puerto Rican. And then the number 11 of Nolan Allaer, and he is definitely closing it up a little bit. And once he gets there, and I don't think it's going to take him long, that's a battle for the podium and the medals.
It definitely is, and I think Nolan knows that, and that's why he's pushing hard right now. I'm sure he's got his dad and his crew in his ear, giving him all the information, knowing exactly what position he needs. We'll see if he can catch some of the draft. We talked about how the draft is so important in these cars, and in these conditions, you want it, but you also want to be able to see.
Well, and that's the issue. So he might stay in it, then just ease out a little bit, you know, because the problem is you get up close, and even with those rain lights flashing, when the spray's heavy enough, that can be even difficult to see. So you're really going to want to be a little bit careful. And I think he's just staying close. I think that that spray down there is definitely an issue.
Yeah, and so he didn't quite make it. He popped it. In fact, their trap speed's about the same, so maybe not using the draft. Maybe he's just waiting for a mistake, knowing the position is at stake here. Just wait for an opportunity to maybe pop out. Not going to get that opportunity again down the roller coaster. That's kind of a once race. But look at that slide that he's able to catch.
And that's where he had his off. So
yeah.
He's not exactly, he's compartmentalized to put that off away and is driving the fastest line he can through there. He wants a medal, man.
He does. Might want to remember that slide, though, just in case. That grass out there has got no grip, and it's a long way down that hill if you go off.
Yep, and look at that, everybody, and that's something you'll see with these open wheel cars with the spray that comes up. If you're running close, sometimes, and again, the spray is the issue, but when you're in a slower corner, run in the car in front of you's tire tracks.
Yeah.
Because he's just cleared that water out of the way, and you might find just that little bit extra grip. Here comes Nolan.
Nolan might be being patient here behind Porter because now he can see the second place of Trevor Russell in front of him. I suspect Trevor had an issue in the last lap at Sector 1 as he was about 5-6 seconds off of his normal pace there. And Nolan may have seen that or was told that on radio and knows that, hey, let's just be patient. Don't slow down the pace. Stay behind Porter because this may be an opportunity to go from 4th to 2nd if he can play his cards right.
Yeah, really good point. Through the snake right now. It all starts at exit at turn 5. And you just wind up all the way through 6A. And then here you make that pivot, and now you're up into the climbing S's. And this is just a glorious piece of racetrack. And there is Nolan, buried in that spray, but just absolutely sticking with it here. And I think that's a good point. I think he might be saying, I'm going to let Porter catch Trevor, and then let those two duke it out and see if I can take advantage of something here.
Yeah, no sense in making a battle just for third between you and one driver. Let's make it a three-way battle for second. And they are definitely gaining. They picked up another 8/10 there in Sector 1. We'll see what their Sector 2s look like, but I think they're closing quickly. You can see it physically on the track now, probably about 5-6 car lengths back. Now let's see if, again, if Nolan's
way closer, isn't he?
He is, and I wonder if he'll pop or, again, play the patient game.
I think he's going to go this time. Here he comes down the inside. Puerto Rican having none of it. And just slams that door shut, so Nolan looks to the inside as they drop down the hill. And again, Porter wisely covers.
Yeah, Porter might want to maybe even next time think about letting him go. Still about 5 laps to go, so there is time to get the spot back if he thinks that maybe doing the leapfrogging is faster. Which at times, certainly in the dry, that can be with that draft.
And Nolan that time a lot more circumspect down through hog pen.
Yes.
And as it turns out, it was a much better run at the exit, as you would expect, instead of making a big save. So let's see if he does anything on Puerto Rican here, heading down into turn 1. Lots of room to be able to make a pass here. He looks to the outside. He's not alongside. He just looked out there. I think he's probing right now.
He's definitely looking and maybe trying to pressure a mistake.
Yes.
But he gets wide there, runs through that little bit of a puddle. Car takes a bit of a step, but he's not going anywhere. Those two did pick up another half a second, 3/4 of a second on Trevor Russell. So keeping an eye on how close can they get. There's an opportunity.
Dives to the inside. Beautiful move, Larry. And Matt, you don't see that often. He got such a good run out of 3. He was past him into left hook.
Yeah, it looked like Aiken might have gotten himself a little bit too wide, got out on that curbing and that extra runoff there around the NASCAR bend. Perfect opportunity for for Nolan to dive inside. Now Nolan can set his eyes on Trevor out in front. Here's that replay.
And just a beautiful move, and he just squared this corner up. Look at the drive. He's going to get out of it right here. You can see Porter turned in a little bit earlier, and Nolan really laid apex it, didn't he?
Yeah, he was just sitting back, like we said, just waiting on the opportunity, not pushing the issue. Pays off here now with into the 3rd spot.
Just went through South Bend, now up into Oak Tree. And, you know, for all of the great high-speed flowing corners and the tricky technical stuff, no corner more important here than Oak Tree.
Yeah, leading onto that 4,000-foot long straightaway is insanely long. It just goes on forever in these under-pound cars. And it's a difficult corner to get right because you're rising up from having to come down the hill after South Bend. All the way down the hill, you rise back up again, and then the track just plateaus right as you make the little kink into 11. Very difficult to set up, and in these conditions, it can't be easy at all. And right now, Nolan trying to hit that mark because he is just closing quickly on Russell.
Yeah, he really is. And his last lap was a 2:20 to Russell's 2:21, a second quicker. Kotyk, the problem is up front, Kotyk is 2.5 seconds quicker than everybody else. He's just in another zone.
And just resetting fastest lap of the race. Reset every one of the 3 sectors fastest lap. And I'm looking at, you can see it on the camera, and that rain is coming down and the wind is blowing. Kotyk doesn't seem to care. He's out there like a beautiful Sunday drive.
Yeah, well, you know, he's one of the guys with just great visibility. And obviously, he's just in a rhythm right now with the car, with the track. Everything is clicking for him. And just really a beautiful job of driving here. But that battle for that 2nd spot, last time by, Nolan was 2 seconds off of Trevor Russell, but lapping quicker. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as Jonathan Kotyk right now up and under the bridge and heading up into those spectacular S's. Here is that battle for 2nd. And this time by, it's about a 1.5 seconds. So he's closing.
He is definitely closing corner by corner, and you can see right there, Trevor, a little back end steps out, round left hook. Oh, then it does the same to Nolan as he comes around 5. Keeping the momentum going. You just want to be flat at this point, even in these conditions. I'm sure they're flat all the way up into the climbing S's.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing I love about this class. As you said, no driver aids. It is down to the driver to do it here. And no paddle shift, none of that. So you can actually force a guy into a mistake, force him to miss a shift. All those things that have been eliminated with some of the technology these days, which those of us of a certain age, you know, look back fondly to that earlier era. But it's just great racing here. As you can see, ooh, big lockup by Nolan, and off he goes. There's not a lot of room there. And he got away with it. Wow, that was close.
He definitely got away with one big time because that tire wall has met a lot of friends this week. He was able to stay out of that and keep the momentum going. In fact, he got a reasonable run off of Oak Tree.
He did.
As behind him there, Burns had to kind of yield a little bit, not quite sure where he was. And now it looks like Nolan may want that spot back, but that hurts the momentum. He was within a second of Trevor Russell.
Oh, he was there, yeah.
Yeah.
Here he comes now, and it's going to be interesting because look at that. He's coming up, and Porter Aiken is going to be going, are you kidding me? You were off in the clay on the outside. How does this happen? But Nolan, he just happened to square that up and got a good straight line drive, and it paid off for him.
And he's holding that spot. It's a bit defensive, kind of holding middle of the track, which it may also be where the grip is coming down roller coaster. Look at that, just floating that car down, floating the upward here, and holding that spot. Amazing how he was able to recover from that off.
And that's twice we've seen him have offs, but with brilliant recoveries. Just really impressive stuff. But look at this, coming back. Porter Aiken getting a nice run through Hogpen is up alongside. They are side by side, heading into turn 1. Aiken locks it up. We've got 2 cars off, coming through the snake as well, and I thought so. I saw Aiken lock up his tire, and I wasn't sure he was going to be able to make it. And it looks like he'll be able to get back on track, but we have the 2 cars off over in the snake.
See if we can cue up a replay on that. Obviously for Aiken, not thrilled with that result there, as we are going to go full course.
Yep, we have to at this stage. There's one of the drivers out.
That's Stephen Grafton.
Yeah, and the beautiful Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame. You can see him shaking his head, not happy, you know, just frustrated. And it looks like the other car may have been able to continue.
Possibly.
I'm not sure who that may have been at this point. But here's the thing with that full course yellow. It's a 32-second lead that is going to evaporate. Let's watch here. This look at the lockup here by Porter, Larry.
Yeah, he's on that outside. It's very slippery out there. Nolan on the inside's got the grip, and for Porter, unfortunately, finds out how slippery that is. Just nose is completely off, and now he's got to go the long way around to try and find his way back onto the track. Probably still holding that fourth spot, but not up there fighting for it. But that full course yellow, he'll be right back under him.
Yep. And when you have an off like that, you know, sometimes the red mist can set in on yourself. And what Porter needs to do is observe the words on the side of his car and chill out, calm down, get back in it. He's quick. He can do this. But the interesting thing for me, you know, talking about Jonathan Koityk's 32-second lead evaporating with the speed we've been seeing from Nolan and Russell. If Nolan gets around Russell, this might be game on.
This is not what Jonathan Kotyk wanted to see for sure.
He
would love to have just cruised a couple more laps, as we're now just finishing lap 14. Yeah, so this really he would have loved to have just waited, but this might just end up being it for him. So we'll see what this looks like. But yeah, he would love to just say, let's just keep going. Those emergency services crew, go ahead and take your time, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, this is one of those deals. If it were to end under caution, that takes nothing away from Jonathan. You know, because when you got a 30-plus second lead and the caution comes out, you've earned it. There's no question about that.
He's been the dominant driver here for sure.
Yeah. It's all a matter of, as you said, how quick they can get Grafton's car moved out of the way. The man from Jamul, California. And sad to see him have that incident here. The other guy that this is going to help quite a bit potentially is Perona. Remember, we were saying, looking at the speeds he was turning, and if this goes back to green, he might be able to take a crack at that top 5.
He might. We'll see. It's we're already working lap 14, so
it's not likely.
Yeah. But it's a good race here, especially that battle for second between the 2, 3, and 4 between Russell, Allaer, and Aiken. Really putting on a good show there. A couple of young drivers just battling it out, having a good day, and having a lot of fun out there. And a couple of offs here and there. Nobody driving the perfect race for those 3, but still pushing hard all the way up until this full course yellow. But for Kotyk, in a position to win another unbelievable drive for what he's done.
I mean, that's going to be you know, assuming it sticks, it'll be his 4th in 5 years. I mean, and the other one was a 4th place finish. I mean, right up there in the front here. And here's the deal: at the runoffs, the regulations are you do not get the green and the white. You don't do one lap. You have to have at least 2 laps of green. And we just heard from race control, if they thought that they could get this cleaned up quick enough, they might add a lap so we could get the 2 laps. But you know, this is a long track, so if they decide that they get that cleared up, and you can see the drivers, they're still thinking there's a possibility of this going back. They're bobbing and weaving here.
Trying to keep some heat in those soft tires.
Oh, you have to. And I just checked the temperature. It's risen to a whopping 56 degrees with rain. So, yeah. So it's, you know, they're still going to, you know, this low speed stuff is going to really rob those tires of heat. And we can't say it emphatically enough. What gives rain tires grip in the wet is still heat in the rubber to be able to grip the asphalt. All the channels and the tread blocks is just to get the water out from underneath it. And they flex, and that generates heat, and that's what you need. And when you're just lumbering around under a full course caution on a cool, rainy day, you're just cooling those tires immensely here.
Yeah, in fact, a good friend of mine, Alex Jones, works for a tire company, was texting me this morning, telling me how a good rain tire works. As long as there's something sort of grooves, it comes down to how good is that compound. Yeah. And for these guys, they're all on the same compound, but it's how they've used it, how they've worked it at this point in the race. Each of their tires now has 13.5 laps on it. Is there anything left on that tire, and how soft can you work that compound to be ready for maybe a restart?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we just got word from race control, checkered flag this time by. They just weren't going to be able to get Grafton's car moved. And part of it is where Grafton went off, it dips down, and he may have got the nose stuck under those tires. We really couldn't see it, and it's just a little bit of a difficult extraction. The important thing was that Grafton was out quickly.
He was out, yep. And they may have to do a bit of repair on that wall sometimes. It's not like the hardest of impacts, but that's been an issue this week. Is sometimes if you hit it just right, pops those apart, and you need a little bit more time. But
they're banded together, but once those bands pop.
One of the guys happy to hear that news might be that little yellow car right there, Jonathan Kotyk.
Hey, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he drove absolutely brilliantly up until that caution came out, and there's no question about it. You know, physically in a car in the dry, it takes a lot more out of you than the wet because you're not feeling all of those centrifugal forces of the heavy braking and side loads and all that. But mentally, the wet is just
very
draining.
Mentally,
The
focus you have to have corner to corner, moment to moment, looking for every bit of dry patch, trying to stay away from the big shiny puddles. It is definitely a game of concentration, a very mental game for him. And right now, Jonathan Kotyk shows he had that mental strength to get it done.
I mean, that was a wet weather clinic that Jonathan Kotyk put in, and he has earned what is coming his way, and that will be a gold medal at the SCCA's National Championship Runoffs in Formula F, and again, the 4th one in 5 years for this driver. He is going through an era of dominance in Formula F right now as he comes across, and the checkered flag waves, your champion, Jonathan Kotyk, silver medalist, Trevor Russell, and bronze medalist was Nolan Allaer, and remember, that came after 2 offs for Nolan. An absolutely stunning drive by Nolan Allaer up onto the podium. Puerto Rican, really competitive there in 4th. And you remember Theodore Burns at the start of the race, he was attacking on Kotyk. So good to see he still ends up with a good top 5. And then Colasacco, Perona, Adorno, Boyan, and how about Cameron Reed? She did a beautiful job finishing in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. First time out here, first time driving a full-size car in the wet. So for her, probably very thrilled to have that great way to finally cut her teeth here at the runoffs. Great result.
That is phenomenal. Yeah, really a great job. No question about that. So really impressed for her. And again, we just saw a phenomenal drive up at the front here. And, you know, it's interesting, and one of the things that I love about SCCA competition in general, and certainly the runoffs, you know, you do have the drivers that, you know, that sort of will cherry pick, you know, they run pro stuff or whatever, and they'll come here. But then you have the drivers that just love this racing and come back every year. They don't necessarily have any ideas to go anywhere else. They like racing SCCA competition, and to be able to put together the streak that Jonathan has here, pretty impressive.
Yeah, stranglehold on Formula F right now. And the rest of the field, a lot of youth right there. Russell, Allaer, and Aiken are all very young drivers, and showing that some of that youth exuberance goes a long way. But Jonathan, not very old gentleman by his own means, but gotten some experience over these younger kids, showing that sometimes that experience pays off.
Well, he's at that perfect age, isn't he, where he's got that enough years where he's got the experience that, racecraft is massive, right? But he's young enough, he still has that fearless speed, and it showed.
Yeah, it's so much precision. That car just wasn't twitching, it wasn't sideways, it wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just finding the drier spots and just so smooth. On all the pedals and the hands, just being super smooth today.
Yeah, I mean, in all the times we were watching him, once the car stepped out a little bit going through 4.
That was it.
Otherwise, it was like he was on rails, and all of that precision, those smooth inputs and everything, that just keeps the car going forward.
Yeah, and all the other guys we talked about, from Russell, Allaer, and Aiken, and even Kautz, who's won this class before, had struggles at times to keep that thing on the track. For Kotyk, no struggles at all today.
Nope, and here's another look at the start. There was Kautz going around. Some great evasive driving behind. Nobody collecting him, which in that spray was very impressive in and of itself. And you can see right there, the number 81 of Theodore Burns able to sneak in front of Kotyk for about 4 corners. And then Jonathan went down underneath, and it looked like, all right, we got a battle here. And at the end of that lap, he was up by like 3 seconds.
Here's one of those offs. Nolan Allaer coming down hog pen the first time he decided to head to the grass. Here's one of the passes again. Nolan this time on the inside of Theodore Burns. The second of drivers to get around Burns in that same spot. Trevor Russell was the other. Look at that car control, just hanging it out there.
Big time. in this battle here, those little bits of wiggles, and this was just a great drive out of that turn 3 to get it squared up and dive underneath, and then up into Oak Tree, just overshot it, got away with it, but the way he squared up and got back on track, he was on the hammer a lot sooner than Porter was, and Porter must have been a little shocked when he went by again.
I would think so too. And also, where'd he come from? I thought he was in the dirt when I went on by. And Nolan, even with a little bit of lockup going into the top of the roller coaster, able to recover and keep it going again. He had a great race, very exciting to watch, and I think these young kids are going to be around for a long time.
Yep, and then it was the incident. 2 cars were involved, but it was Steve Grafton's that got stuck over there, and that precipitated the caution, and ultimately finishing under a full course yellow. So into the pits comes Jonathan Kotyk, Trevor Russell, and Nolan Allaer, your podium and the medalists here in Formula F at the 2022 running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. And medals are going to be awarded soon, and that means we're going to be hearing from our champions in the top 3 here from Hayward. And looking forward to this one because these conditions were just furious, and to hear what these guys are saying, especially Nolan with the 2 offs and then the comeback drive. He'll be frustrated with the offs, but I think he'll be pretty darn pleased with the fight back.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun to hear he and both Trevor, and because they had very exciting races there, to hear their take on this thing, if they wanted that to end or just wanted to just keep racing. I suspect the latter.
I would agree with you on that. All right, let's get down to Hayward.
Guys, Jonathan Kotyk getting out of the car. If anything, I would say this man looks cold. It says he's from Florida. How was your drive, Jonathan?
That was pretty good. Just kind of kept my head down. A little bit of a challenge at the start, but I don't know. I just played it safe and knew I'd get him on the back straight. So it's all good. Can't thank Team Pelfrey, Team Jernigan's, Jeff, Jessica, Big Daddy, Mom and Dad, and just everyone on the team, and Elite Engines and Hoosier and Carbotech as well.
When it went caution, did you think that if it went green again, you'd be able to make another gap, or were you hoping to finish under caution?
I was hoping to finish under caution, but I knew all I had to do was just time it right and just catch him off guard and then just be able to pull a gap. So if it would have been green, it would have been fun, but I'll take this too.
Well, congratulations, your 4th championship in 5 tries. You going to take a victory lap or head inside?
I'm going to head inside, find some warmth.
Congratulations.
I love that. I'm from Florida. Yeah, I'm cold. No question about that. And, you could hear it there. He was confident that he could win it, but, hey, he already showed his dominance.
Let's done the work.
Let's end this thing, and go get a cup of hot chocolate.
He had definitely done the work to earn it, and even now saying, warmth feels a little bit better than driving in the rain one more lap. But he's done this a couple of times, so he knows what victory lap feels like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Back down to Hayward.
Trevor, when you saw the full course caution come out, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was hoping that we would get a few green laps because it would be a fun battle between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but sadly we had to finish under safety car.
How is it like? What is it like to drive this car in the rain here at VIR? What's the experience?
Some corners are more slick than others, but it's mainly just about getting out of the powers with as much power as possible.
Well, congratulations to you on a podium, 2nd place here at the Runoffs. We're going to go ahead and get Nolan. Hey, Nolan. Do you have any idea what you put your father through when you're driving?
No, I'm more worried about what I put my mother through when I was driving because she was watching too.
Well, congratulations to you on a podium. How was your race?
Very eventful to say the least. Just that early mistake coming through Hogpen. It was a lot slicker than I thought on the outside. Let me go off the track. Just wish I hadn't done that mistake because we had a lot of pace and made it very entertaining coming back. So it definitely wasn't a boring race.
Well, congratulations on the podium, and we'll see you race again in a couple of hours.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Martini, Evan Williams, Sean Don, Team Pelfrey for putting me in an incredible car. Clearly, congrats to Jonathan Kotyk on another championship. He's the guy to beat. Just so happy to be out here. Thank you.
Well, and twice there you heard Team Pelfrey.
Yeah.
They field top flight formula cars for these guys.
They do. They've got great drivers, but boy, do they put together a great package, a great car. You can just tell the way those 2 cars are able to recover. Nolan knows it was his mistakes that put him off. But the car was fantastic.
Yep. And you're right. He's right. Had he not had that first off, it was up in the sharp end of things. Who knows? Because he was fast. Well, that wraps up our coverage here of Formula F at this 59th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Greg Creamer, and on behalf of Larry and, of course, Hayward down in the pits, thanks so much for joining us here at VIR for the Runoffs.
Why race? Because it's in our blood. A love of driving that pushes us as hard on the road as it does on the track. It's why we reinvented the Roadster and put a piece of it into every car we make. It's why we refine, rethink, and refine again. And it's why we'll always engineer to your heart's BPM, not simply an engine's RPM. Why race? Why